All right, we're going to talk Georgia. Let's head to Athens, talk a little Georgia recruiting. It was the Bulldogs home opener, and it went like everybody thought it would. They picked up an easy 48-3 win over Tennessee Tech. They moved to 2-0 on the season, and there were some big name visitors on campus. Running back Usman Chroma was supposed to maybe visit Atlanta last weekend. He shows up at Auburn, but this weekend he's in Athens. I know everybody put their picks in for Usman Chroma to Auburn, but what are you hearing after this Georgia visit?
Well, it'll be interesting to see what Georgia does at the running back position. They already have Bo Walker committed.
Right.
And Shane Marshall is another in-state tailback that they're in a great spot for. He's currently committed to Minnesota. He's going to take his official visit to Georgia for the Auburn game. And I get the sense that the Bulldogs are super high on Shane Marshall. Now, Chroma is someone that it seems like Georgia has always been keeping warm. And on the flip side, he's always been keeping warm as well. If Georgia turns it up for Chroma, do they ultimately get him? I think I've said to you in the past, I feel like they would have a great shot. But right now I get the sense that Auburn is the leader. There's been times where I felt that way about Florida State. And then Tennessee is another program looking to sign another or land another running back here in 2025. So they're in play as well. But Georgia getting Chroma on campus this weekend continues to show at the very least that these two parties are keeping each other warm.
Yeah, really interesting. It's kind of crazy how Chroma has two really good teams in Florida State and Auburn doing everything they can, pouring all of it into his recruitment. He doesn't really want to, he hasn't committed. I shouldn't say he doesn't really want to go there, but he hasn't committed there yet. And then you got Georgia, who's kind of, for lack of a better term, slow playing him a little bit. And that's the team that he's really, trying to get a feel for. So we'll see what happens there with Chroma. You still like your pick for Auburn as it stands right now?
I haven't heard different, but all these picks are fluid. Even like I didn't get my picks in time for Myron Charles, who flipped to Texas, and Tom, who flipped to Texas A&M today. I mean, those were guys that we've talked about saying we're on flip watch. But these recruitments are all fluid. Chroma, we'll see what happens as he continues through his process here. But I'm still with Auburn until someone tells me different.
All right. There was another flip target. There was a couple flip targets on campus. You had Christian Gass. You had Jeremiah McLeod, who's committed to UF. Christian Gass, though, he's the linebacker committed to Tennessee, and this really came down to two teams. He committed to Tennessee about 6 weeks ago, and it was Tennessee or Georgia. So is it significant that he showed up today at Athens, or does it not mean much?
I think it is significant because that one, as you said, went down to the wire. I think there were times leading up to his commitment where should I leave the state? Now Tennessee coach Inge and company obviously did a good job getting them in the fold, but Georgia was right there giving them a lot to think about. They're still doing that. Coach Schumann, Coach Kirby Smart, Coach Chidera, Deribe, they're all involved in recruiting Christian Gass. And they got him to campus this weekend. We'll see what happens coming out of it. But talking to some folks that spent time around him today, I think that they feel like there's some promise in that recruitment for Georgia moving forward. Jeremiah McLeod is someone that I think could also end up in Georgia's class. Now, Georgia, they're in the mix for several defensive linemen. That's a position that's always a point of emphasis for Kirby Smart year in and year out on the trail for them to play the style of football that they're looking to play. They got to be dominant in the trenches on both sides. And they got 4 targets out there on the defensive line right now, kind of on the interior part of the defensive line, in Justice Terry, who was at Alabama today, Elijah Griffin, who may be at Miami next weekend. Georgia's the on-3 RPM favorite for both. But they got Alabama and they got Miami challenging them for each of those prospects. And then you got Kevin Wynn, who's currently committed to Florida State. I think he's ultimately going to end up in Georgia's class. Now, it means I probably should RPM it soon. So let me circle around with Rusty and Chad and work together on those guys, work together with those guys on it. But I like the way it's trending for Georgia with Kevin Wynn right now. And then you have Jeremiah McLeod, who was on campus today. I could see him ending up in Georgia's class as well. And that would be a hell of a defensive line finish. That could also include edge rusher Chase Linton, who was back there this weekend from Atlanta, was at the win over Clemson. Georgia's the favorite on the on-3 RPM for Chase Linton as well.
And the reason you're saying that could be a heck of a class is because we're also talking about Elijah Griffin and Justice Terry, another pair of 5-stars that are also trending heavily to Georgia. So, yeah, that would be quite a class. Want to talk about linebacker Tyler Atkinson, because
Mhm.
Georgia has already landed the number one linebacker in the 2025 class in Zane Walker. And today, 2026 linebacker Tyler Atkinson was on campus. What are you hearing about Atkinson in Georgia after this visit?
Well, I think that coming into the visit, Georgia was one of the 2 or 3 front runners. Ohio State is a program that's done a really good job with Tyler Atkinson. Auburn is one that's in there. But Xavier Griffin, who's committed to USC, and Tyler Atkinson, those are guys that, Georgia's pushing for. Xavier's out at USC this weekend, so that's big for the Trojans to get him back on campus as Georgia continues to recruit him and tries to get him to stay home. But those are guys that Georgia's definitely weigh in for. But those recruitments, obviously Xavier's already given a verbal, and Tyler's going to take some visits this fall and see some games.